Welcome back to the IE427 Garage, buddy. Today we're working on the Daytona Coupe, and what I think we're going to work on is getting the clutch, the bell housing, and hopefully even the transmission mated up to the back of the Gen 2 Coyote. Alright, so let's start here. The bell housing on this is made by QuickTime, and it is I think it's an SFI approved, so it's a pretty thick, steel bell housing, and it's been modified, which I don't have a problem with because there would have been or will be clearance issues had it not been modified. What I have a problem with is the manner in which it was modified. And had someone taken just a little bit more time and had a little bit more patience when trimming the bottom of this, it would have come out much better. And it wouldn't be so paper thin in these areas at the bottom where the bell housing mates up to the engine. So let me turn the camera around and we'll take a look at this. Basically, this portion of the bell housing used to be round. And that area that it was going to be sticking down was about 1.5 inches below the bottom of the oil pan. With it sticking down that far and the realization that this car is low to the ground, there was a chance that that lip that was sticking down past the oil pan would hit on something, so if you go over a speed bump or something to that manner, you're gonna hit it and have an issue. So it's been trimmed. The problem is that rather than making one straight cut, and it looks like someone probably used angle grinder and a death wheel with this, and again, that's fine. The two ends don't match up. So if you look right here, we have this big offset where the two cuts kind of came together. And I'm not real happy with that, and the fact that there's no paint on it either. So originally this piece was probably powder coated. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the angle grinder and a flap wheel, and I'm going to round some of this over. You can see just how paper thin that steel is right there. I'm going to do my best just to take off the sharp edge, but you can see here on the bottom where when they cut it, they dug in to this area down here as well. So I'm going to dress this just a bit, and then I'm going to hit it with some probably engine enamel. I'm not worried about heat too much on this, and the engine enamel will give it a good tough finish so that it will hopefully discourage any rust from developing on the surface. But you can see it's been moved around so many times that even over in these areas here, it's been dragged across surfaces and everything else that the finish is kind of wearing off on those. So who knows, it may have just been painted. Regardless, we're going to do our best to clean up those areas that are down to bare metal and get them covered in a coat of paint just so that they don't have any rust issues later. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get that all dressed up, and then I'll bring you guys back and have you take a look at it just before we put some paint on it. Alright, I think this is as good as I'm going to get it. I did my best to smooth out these areas. You can still see there's a little bit of a divot there, tiny bit of a divot right there. We're going to cover this in paint. I wanted to make sure that this area right here wasn't so sharp that it was going to cut someone's fingers, especially mine. I did the same thing down here where they kind of got a little crazy with the death wheel right here. And so on the back sides of this, I just rounded those off just the littlest bit so they're not sharp. I just want to make it more like the edges of the OEM piece, like when it was delivered, so that we don't have these really sharp edges that are going to cut someone, myself, when installing this thing or having to service it later. Now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll take this out and we'll put a nice coat of paint on it. Now, it is raining here today, which is going to inhibit what I can do as far as painting. So I'm not going to be able to take this outside and paint it. So I'm probably going to wait until we have a little bit nicer day to paint it, but I can get it all cleaned and prepped today, and then hopefully get started on getting the clutch disc and the clutch pressure plate mounted to the back of the flywheel. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to get this all cleaned up, I'm going to put it aside, pray for a nice sunny day, which I think is going to be Tuesday or Wednesday. Today's Friday, so we're supposed to get rain for the next 4 days. But we'll see. If I have a day where we have enough sun outside that I can take this thing outside and spray a couple coats on it real quick, I will. Otherwise, it'll just have to wait until we have a nicer day. I'll go ahead and work on the clutch next, getting the pressure plate and the clutch disc mounted to the back of the engine. I was doing so good today. Like, I got the clutch disc put in there. I got the flywheel all clean first, but I got the clutch disc, kind of centered up with the clutch alignment tool. I got the pressure plate lined up where it was, gonna go. I even got the pressure plate installed and torqued down. And then I decided, I've got these belts for the power steering pump and the AC compressor. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put those on since I got the engine like right here. And that'll be behind me, and then once I put it in the car, I won't have to deal with those, right? So I've got two belts for the AC, because at first the owner could not find the AC parts for the car. He had obviously had this other guy building the car for him, and we couldn't find a bunch of the AC parts, and I think I showed you in one of the previous videos. He arrived after the engine came back from the dyno with this big crate of stuff with all the AC stuff, or I hope all the AC stuff, and he brought the belt for the AC compressor. Well, in the midst of all this, we had ordered an AC belt, a Gates belt, because I couldn't find any of the AC parts. So now I have two belts. Now, this is the one that came with the AC kit from Factory 5, and this is the Gates holes. They're exactly the same belt, other than manufacturers. So same length, they're a stretch fit belt, and I went to put this one on because all of the rest of the belts that we have on the car, or on the engine, are Gates belts. So I just figured we might as well make them all match. And I went to put it on. I could not get that thing to go on there. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Well, it dawned on me that it wouldn't fit in the confines of the space, the grooves. And I thought, I wonder if there's a difference between the belt that goes on the F-150, because this is a motor of an F-150, and the one that goes in the Mustang. And sure as shit, the one for the Mustang is a 6-rib belt, and of course that's what Factory 5 expects you to be using, because that's what the majority of these crate engines come as. Well, the F-150, because it has a 4-rib belt, that 6-rib won't fit in there. And I was fighting it to the point where I gave my buddy Eric Trevis a call, and I said, Eric, you're the only guy that I know that put in an F-150 engine and converted it over to the Mustang specs. What the hell am I doing wrong? And between the two of us, we figured out that we have a 4-rib back pulley for the crank pulley on this. So it's a pulley with two sets of ribs on it. So I've got kind of everything disassembled now, and you can see I had to pull the tensioner off because you can't get the AC pulley in. The tensioner goes right back here, and you can't get that belt in with that tensioner in the way. So I pulled that out of the way, and I tried to get the belt on just by itself, and it won't go. Well, you can see the pulleys are two different widths. the spot for the belts anyways. So now I'm in this predicament where I've got to find a belt, a 4-rib belt, because it'll work on the 6-rib AC compressor, that is the same length and spec as the one we have here. And I thought, I'll bet you, there's no way that they make one. Well, it just so happens that they do make one, same part number and everything, that goes on the Ford Edge, the Ford Maverick, and a couple of other Ford vehicles. They're all Ford vehicles. And stretch to fit, just the same belt, but only 4 ribs instead of 6. So I found it, I ordered it, and rather than dicking around with it, I just ordered the belt installation tool. Since I don't have one, I just figured to make things easier and I won't have to use a freaking zip tie to put it on. Now I've seen different ways. I've seen the zip tie method that they actually tell you to use in the assembly manual. But I've also seen guys use a piece of rope on some YouTube and Rumble videos. And so I thought, well, hell, I got plenty of rope here. Not that I tied Mrs. IE427 up with rope or anything. Or that she ties me up with it. But since we're in construction, we often need to use rope in order to do things. And so we have plenty of rope here. But boy, I got off on a tangent there. Anyways, I figured I'd try that way and instead of the zip tie way, because I can just see the zip tie breaking and the belt flying off and knocking me in the forehead. So as I ordered the part, it said recommended tools on the checkout for the belt. I ordered on Rock Auto, and the tool actually cost more than the belt. I think that the belt was like $11.88. The tool to install it, and you can use it to take the belt off too, was $13 and some odd cents. And I thought, you know what? I'm probably going to need this in the future. I might as well just get it. So I ordered that, the belt, and then shipping. It's supposed to be here on Friday. So I'm kind of stymied on the engine for now. So we're going to have to catch up when I get the belt. I'll see if there's any other stuff that I can do in the meantime. I could get the bell housing painted by then, because the rain is supposed to subside here on Tuesday. So that'll give me a couple of days, hopefully of good weather. I can paint the bell housing, get it installed, maybe even get the transmission on the back of the engine. And I've got a way I'm gonna show you that is much easier than working everything on the ground. So we'll see if I can get that done in this video. But I will catch up with you guys as soon as I have some more work to do on the Gen 2 Coyote for the Coupe. All right, it's been a couple of days, and I've been working on the crate engine, trying to get it ready to go into the car, in between the frame rails. The issue that I had was that the bell housing had been pushed around so much that the paint, I think it's paint on there, or powder coating, had been really, really abused. And there was that area that I think I showed you where it had been clearanced on the bottom, and I wanted to get all those raw metal exposed portions of it covered in paint. So I went ahead and first chance I got, I took it outside. We had some sun the other day, and I got a couple of coats of paint on it. But as tends to happen, as soon as I painted it, the next day we had rain, and it was cold and kind of just shitty out. And so the paint didn't want to cure. And so what I did is I brought it in the shop and I let it sit for a couple of days inside the warm shop, and I managed to get the paint to cure. It's dry now. And so last night, I was going to pick up the camera, but I was just so pissed off by the time I had finished that I just didn't feel like picking up the camera. So I did make an Instagram post. If you want, go back and look at that Instagram post. I don't know when this video is coming out, but you will have seen it by now. I got the bell housing installed yesterday, and then I went to work on the front pulley assembly. So I wanted to get all the front dress on the motor basically taken care of yesterday. And as luck would have it, when I went to put on the belt for the AC, I have a 6-rib belt for it here. Actually, I have 2. because we ordered one for a 2017 Mustang, and then one was included with the factory 5 parts that were shipped with the kit initially. Well, I didn't have those parts. We know now that those parts had been sitting at the previous builders all this time. He couldn't find any of the AC parts. So we finally got those parts, and lo and behold, that belt was in there. Again, a 6-rib pulley, or 6-rib belt. The problem here is that this is a converted F-150 Gen 2 Coyote. And what that means is that crank pulley on the front of the motor, for the AC anyway, is only a 4-rib pulley. So you know what that means. A 6-rib belt is not going to fit on a 4-rib pulley. So I had to get online and I had to research a belt for it, and I finally tracked one down. It's another Ford part, another Ford car. It happens to fit, I think, the Ford Edge, the Ford Maverick, and a couple of other Ford vehicles, but take that same stretch belt, but in a 4-rib versus a 6-rib. So I ordered one up, and it got here. We've got it on the front of the engine now. So that proved to be relatively easy. The tool that I bought to put the belt on didn't really work in this situation because it's the back pulley on the crank, and the AC compressor has its clutch on the front, which doesn't allow the belt installer tool to really go on there. So I had to go back to the way that it is suggested to do this, and that is to use I think it's an 11-inch tie wrap. And so I did that, and I got the pulley on, and Eric Travis gave me some good advice for putting the belt on. He said to make sure that you thread the belt behind the crank pulley. Even though there doesn't look like there's going to be enough room to get it to go in there, it fits. And then wrap it around the AC compressor first, and then do the tie wrap trick on the crank pulley, spin the motor over by hand, and get the belt to go on. And that actually worked pretty well. After that, it was just a matter of putting the drive belt back on. And we've got some rust on the crank pulley from when they dynoed the motor. Basically, any of the water that was trapped inside after the dyno session drained out here and here. And it all kind of just migrated down to the crank pulley. And so the crank pulley in those areas where it had been run, and there was no paint, rusted. Not a big deal. Once we start the motor and get it running, the rust will just go away and it'll be fine from then on out. No big deal. So I got that put on, and then I started on the power steering. Well, again, there must be some interference between the F-150 heads versus the Mustang heads, because it puts this power steering pump in a configuration where it's kind of leaning back this way in order to get the belt tight. And what happens is between the weld on the tank right here and the actual little boss that is a casting for the head, I couldn't get it tight. It ran into the head before I could get the belt tight. Now, I can probably get a longer belt because this actually adjusts from the bottom. So basically the stop or the lock for the slide is on the bottom. And so if I can get a longer belt, I can swing this thing farther. So I'm going to investigate this belt and see if they make it in. It doesn't, I probably only need another inch, maybe a ½ inch of belt length to get this to swing out more. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. I clearanced the weld by I filed it. I've got the file right here. So I just used a flat file. And then I took the same flat file and I just kind of nicked the corner of the casting for the head, and I got clearance. It's not a lot, but it clears. And I got the belt tight. But I was just so pissed off by the time I got all that done. That was last night. It was Sunday night. I posted on social media that, the Lord's Day wasn't very kind to me because I worked on that from, I think we finished up with brunch. Mrs. IE 427 makes me breakfast every Sunday morning, late Sunday morning. I like to sleep in. And so by the time I got to the shop, it was probably 1, 2 o'clock. And I worked on it from the time I got out here to the shop until the time I went into dinner. That'll tell you how much time clearancing and fitting that power steering pump took. I'm not blaming KRC this time. This clearly isn't their issue, because I fit their power steering pump to other Gen 2 Coyotes in the past. The prototype is a perfect example. That went on perfect. I didn't have any trouble with any clearances on that. I just put it on and it fit. So there must be an issue with the difference between the truck Coyote versus the car Coyote. And that's kind of what I'm kind of chalking it up to at this point. But it's all fit right now, and it'll be fine if I can't find a longer belt. But I'm just hoping I can find a belt that's just a touch longer, and it'll give us a little bit more of adjustment so that we have a little more clearance between the power steering pump reservoir and the head. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Like I said, the bell housing's on, it's ready to go. The transmission, I just had Mrs. IE427 out here in the shop with me. She helped me drag the transmission out. The transmission is somewhat put together. I'm missing some parts on the transmission, but I'll just have to deal with that as as the build goes along. I noticed that the slave cylinder is mounted to the transmission, but I have not seen the push rod for it, so I don't know where that is. So I've got to go through the boxes once again and see if I can find that. I actually found the, let me show you the transmission first. So the transmission, my back has just been killing me the last few weeks. And so Mrs. IE427 came out and gave me a hand. We had to basically get that transmission over there where the box is to over here so I can lift it up with the engine hoist, hopefully tomorrow. But when I went to grab this, she was on that end of it. I was over here. I went to grab it by the shifter, and the shifter's not bolted down. Now, I didn't notice it. I didn't have my glasses on, just like I don't now. So now I've got to realign the shifter, put it back in neutral, and get that thing bolted back on. Even though we're going to end up filling the transmission through the top of the shifter, I don't want the shifter open to the air until then. And I can't have it like this, obviously. So I'm going to have to do that. I've got to research into the reverse lockout, because the T56, I learned this when I was researching the T56 for Ellie, has a reverse lockout that is electronically controlled, and you really want to make sure that you enable that lock so that when you go to put it into reverse, it goes in. And so there is a solenoid that we need to mount on here to activate the electronics to get the thing into reverse. So I've got to investigate that a little bit more. And then hopefully I can get this bolted to the back of the engine tomorrow. And then it shouldn't be long after that it goes in the car. But that's kind of where I'm at today. And it's just, it's been a rough couple of days, because it just seems as though I'm continually hunting for parts for this car. I ran into something where I was working on getting all the aluminum panels ready to go to the powder coater, and I know that there are panels that go right here, but I can't find them. So I'm going to have to go upstairs again and find if I have them or not, and if not, then I'm in the same position I was with all the air conditioning parts. Where are the panels? You know, we know they shipped with the kit, inventory was done, but you know, I may or may not have them here, so I've got to investigate that. And then I found that the bolts, this has been bugging me for a while. The bolts for the coilovers here on the front, if you look right here, there's only 2 or 3 threads that hold this nut onto the bolt that goes through here. Obviously, these bolts are way too short. I didn't do the inventory to this. Now, I know in the past, on a lot of the Mark IVs, probably every Mark IV that I've done, it just seems as though the bolts for the front coilovers are always short. I don't know if this is a factory 5 thing or if guys are just installing the wrong hardware. Luckily, I have a bunch of extra hardware from a bunch of extra kits. And I would only have all this extra hardware if they were included in kits. So I dug out a couple of longer bolts. So you can see right here, I've got a longer bolt that's going to go in here. And looking at it, you're going, man, Frank, that's really long. But picture the nut being on there. There's only going to be 3 or 4 threads sticking out past the nylon lock portion of it. This is the size bolt that should have gone on the front and didn't. In the back, I already fixed this side. You can see now I've got about 3 or 4 threads sticking out past the nylon lock nut, so I've already fixed this one. This one did not require jacking up the car off the lift and taking the load off of the coilover. But over on this side, you can see that I'm lucky if I've got a thread and a half sticking out past the end here, and that's because the washer was put on here. You don't need the washer. When you're bolting something down to a flat surface and there's full contact or full bearing surface for the end of the bolt, the head of the bolt, and the back of the nut, you don't need this washer. Now, I don't care if it's shown in the Factory 5 instruction manual or not. A thread and a half sticking out of the end of the nylon is not enough. So we're going to pull this off. We're going to pull the washer out. We're going to put this back on. We know that the nylon's still good because it never got a chance to lock down. We're going to put this back on, and it's going to look like the other side, and it's going to be good. But on the front ones, I have no choice but to pull that hardware out and then put longer bolts in. Again, the nylon hasn't ever touched the surface of the bolt, so it's going to be fine locking it down after that. But this is where we're at with this. Like I said, I've been walking past this for at least a couple weeks now since it's been back up on the lift. And every time I walk by it, I see that and I think, I got to fix that. I got to fix that. Well, I'm going to just fix it now. But that's where we're at for today. I'm going to go ahead and finish up what I'm doing out here in the shop tonight. It's already, I think it's already 4:30. Yeah, and I'll be back at it tomorrow when I get home from work. We'll get a couple more things done on the car. Hopefully we'll get that transmission set up on a table. And I'm going to show you guys an easy way to mate up your transmission to your engine so you're not fighting it on the ground. All right, this afternoon when I got back to the shop, I decided that I was going to go upstairs and see if I could find some of the parts for the transmission. And I haven't found those yet. But the first box that I opened, I decided to take everything out of. And now this box has all kinds of stuff. It has like the spinners for the wheels. And now the wheels were pulled off this car, given back to the owner. He took them home for storage because I simply don't have the room here at the shop. There's still some other stuff here. For instance, I've got the Willwood brake box that I found. I found that in the same box that I was rummaging through this afternoon. I pulled everything out of that box, and in the bottom of that box, I found 2 panels that I've been looking for quite some time. And those panels are the panels that are, well, one I've got on the ground there. It slipped out of my hand, and so it's down there. So that's the one that goes right here. And it's going to have to be modified to go around the brake line right here. So no problem. I can deal with that. And then the other one is right here. So I found both of these panels stacked on top of each other, and then with a bunch of other stuff stacked on top of them. Now this one goes on this side, and you can see I'm going to have to notch that one for that brake line and fitting as well. So my whole plan was to get the engine and the transmission in the car in this video, but I looked at the time that this video is running already. It's running kind of long, and now that I've got those panels, I would much rather jack the front of the car up, pull the wheels off, get those panels fit. At the same time, I can fix the bolts that we talked about last night, get those for the coilovers fixed, and work on getting the rest of the panels that I need to get done that need to go to powder coat. So I'm going to hold off on the transmission right now, even though I've got it in the shop. Now I'm going to keep working on it. I'm going to keep looking for those parts because I did get a text from the car owner. He says he's got the solenoid, or he ordered a solenoid for the reverse lockout. And he also said the push rod was shipped with his kit from Mike Forte. And I had no doubts that the shipment came with the push rod. I just can't find it. So I'm going to continue looking through boxes. I'm probably just going to take some time as well while I'm going through those boxes to kind of separate stuff out, remark the boxes so that I can find stuff easier, because I only wrote down on the boxes like the big stuff that was in there, because I thought, in my mind anyway, that the parts that were in each of these boxes all kind of went together, but I'm finding that that wasn't the case. It was like, we got a bunch of parts here on the workbench, throw them all in a box and then pack them up and away they go. And that's kind of the way this is. I'm not blaming the car owner for this. So if you're watching, I'm not blaming you for this, Barry. I'm frustrated on my end that this is taking so long to go through parts. I'm having the same problem with the Mustang project. I could have sworn that I had all the interior parts, and now I don't have a headliner. I've got to order a headliner for that. And so that's a whole different story. So I'm going to cut the video here. I'm going to start another video right away, and that's going to be all the stuff that I just kind of went through. And then we'll see how much time in this next video we're going to have to get the transmission mated up, because I want to show you guys how to do it without breaking your back trying to put the transmission and the engine together if you're assembling those parts on your own. So, as always, if you are enjoying the content here, please do the like, the share, the subscribe, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.